If you know this channel, you've seen a bunch of videos focusing on coaster manufacturers. The best, the worst, the most underrated, overrated, the most painful. But thanks to Tuski1234 game supporting UA, I got another one for you today. Sometimes everyone agrees a ride is great. Other times everyone agrees a ride is terrible. But in some rare instances, a manufacturer will make a ride that will get rave reviews from some, and will get jeered by others. It's a phenomenon. And today, let's look at these coasters, and answer why people's opinions differ so much. These are every manufacturer's most polarizing coaster. Not every manufacturer has a polarizing coaster, so I won't waste your time and try to make a case for those ones. This includes Vegan. They make a lot of alpine coasters and they're all pretty similar. Pinfari makes a lot of small, fair-style rides and nobody seems to love them or hate them. Pax is a Russian manufacturer, and I don't hear enough buzz about their coasters to see which ones people seem to like. Same with Jinma. They're the Chinese company that makes knockoff coasters at other manufacturers, but I'm not familiar with people who have ridden many, if any of these. The SBF Visa Group makes mainly small rides, but even for their bigger ones, I'm not sure if anything's super polarizing. Skyline makes those flat ride coasters, and I don't know anyone who loves them. Chance Ride's most notable coaster is Lightning Run, but that's not polarizing. They've also manufactured a lot of toboggans, but that seems to range from pure hatred to eh. Finally, Togo can probably be on this video, but I couldn't find anything that I would consider polarizing. The closest one for me would be the Big Apple coaster, but even then, most people seem to put up with this at best, and revile it at worst. But if you know anything that used to operate in America, or something that's over in Japan that draws a lot of differing opinions, let me know in the comments below. Let's start with aerodynamics, and this is a target-rich manufacturer. When I did my list of most polarizing coasters, there were 3 arrows near the top. 2 of them are at Magic Mountain and they're right next to each other. Viper is intense and thrilling, but some say it's rough. X2 is an off-the-wall insane experience, but again, it runs rough. You see a pattern here. Awesome, forceful rides that may or may not hurt your head. But there is one more coaster that I'm choosing for this list, and it wasn't my top arrow on my last polarizing list. But it seems like, recently, this one is getting more buzz, positive and negative. I'm talking about Magnum XL200. This was the original hypercoaster, built in 1989, and I represent the group that loves this. It's chock full of airtime from start to finish, and the finale is absolutely legendary. There are others that hate this ride, and it's all about the pain. Well, some people call it boring until the finale, but the main beef people have is the roughness and the lap bars. It does have that aero rattle, and those aero transitions, and when it flings you into your lap bar, it's not pleasant. These are heavy and were not designed to be comfortable. I get it, but the forces on Magnum are so good that I can overlook it. B&M is kind of the anti-aero. Those coasters were designed by hand, and B&M layouts are much more refined. I don't think there are too many polarizing B&Ms, but I had some good ones to pick from. This includes loopers like Banshee, Rougarou, and Medusa. The coaster formerly known as Bizarro, and also formerly known as Medusa. Confusing and polarizing. We also got some hypers, including Apollo's Chariot, and one I almost chose, Nitro. I went with another hyper, Raging Bull. This is polarizing just because it breaks away from the norm. When B&M makes a hyper, it's usually a long, skinny, out-and-back layout. Pretty much hill after hill and then a helix at the end. Raging Bull was one of their first designs, and they went with a hyper twister model. This definitely did not land with everyone. Instead of camelback after camelback, this one has some high turns and some people call it boring. Personally, I think the layout makes it interesting. It still has the airtime moments to make it a great ride. As much as I love airtime, I prefer this layout over the linear ones, the ones like Intimidator. I know plenty of people who love this ride, and plenty that rank it at the bottom of their hyper list, so this is a good pick for B&M. Custom Coasters International, or CCI. For about 10 years, these guys were building all the best wooden coasters, and for this list, I was looking at 3 of their monsters. Boulder Dash has a great layout and setting, but its roughness and airtime are questionable. I nearly went with the Boss. If you're like me, you think the layout is boring and it's way too rough, but others love it as a behemoth and a speed machine. Today, I'm going with Shivering Timbers. This was a big deal when I first got into coasters more than 20 years ago. Then, it seemed to fall out of favor as it got older. Before I finally got to ride it, it seemed to be gaining a reputation as one of America's elite wooden coasters. And even though I wouldn't put it that high, I enjoyed it and it's almost a top 50 coaster. I thought the roughness was bearable and the airtime was good. On the other side, people can't stand the mile of track shaking them around, and I understand that. It's hard to ride this over and over. The Din Corporation preceded CCI and they only built 10 coasters. I couldn't nail down a great choice here. Thunder Run is pretty smooth, but the layout isn't great. Wolverine Wildcat has a great layout, but it's Jackhammer City. I don't think anyone loves these coasters enough to be considered polarizing. So I'm going off the board. Charles Din worked on the Beast at Kings Island, and that is a polarizing coaster. People who love it say the layout in the woods and the length makes this ride a legend. People who hate it say the layout is boring and it's way too rough to enjoy. My opinion spans over the spectrum, and it's changed over the years. When I rank up the Beast on my list, it seems like people are mad that it's too high or too low. Great Coasters International, or GCI, is yet another wooden coaster manufacturer, and they've outlasted all their competition. They have 2 coasters that I've been down on as of late, but other people rank these at the top of their GCI list. That's Thunderhead at Dollywood and Lightning Racer at Hershey Park. I'm going with a GCI that I personally love, American Thunder. I thought this had a great twister layout full of airtime, but others think it's slow and lacks any forces. It's been a while since I rode this, so I need to get a re-ride. I think I'll get back to Six Flags St. Louis in 2023, and that'll be 5 years since my last ride. Gerstlauer is a German manufacturer that makes a variety of rides, most of which are not controversial, but I'm looking at 3 of their Beyond Vertical coasters for this list. When it comes to ranking rides at Six Flags Over Georgia, Daredevil Dive seems to range from people's number 3 to number 10. TMNT Shellraiser has a great layout, but its track can deliver some pain. I'm going with Hangtime at Knott's. The big Hangtime fans love its variety of elements, and, well, you gotta love that light package. Others, like me, think the ride experience falls short, especially compared to other Infinity coasters like Monster. I don't think anyone hates this ride, but you got those who think it's bland, versus those who think it's the best ride in the park. Juvenola only has 3 coasters, and I think Goliath at Magic Mountain is a good pick for this one. You can also pick Titan, but I don't hear as much controversy over that. This one is very simple. If you love speed and bone-crushing intensity, you're gonna love Goliath. If you like your hypers with airtime and elements that really pop, Goliath seems like a waste of space. It all comes down to personal preference. Some of these are about pain and roughness, but this is just about what forces you prefer. The Gravity Group is an awesome wooden coaster manufacturer, but there seems to be a theme with them. Their rides get rough, like stupid rough. Mindblower is an amazing woody, but it seems to be only getting worse. That's not a polarizing ride, it seems to be agreed on. The same applies to Hades 360 as well, but there is one main difference. Hades is so brutal that some people can't put that aside. The pain is too much to excuse and is actually despised. I understand that, but I can still see through the pain and enjoy the ride, at least for now. Hopkins only built 7 coasters, and this is a weak one, but I'm going with Texas Tornado. Not a lot of people have ridden this, but among those who have, some people think it's really solid and others think it's trash. I'm kinda in the middle. Get to Amarillo and judge for yourself. Intamin takes a lot of chances and not all of them pay off. There were a lot of good choices for Intamin, including some of their tallest coasters. Intimidator 305, Millennium Force, King Ka, Hyperion, and one of their only wooden coasters, American Eagle. But there's only one right answer here. For my money, the most polarizing coaster in the world, Skyrush at Hershey Park. The controversy focuses around the lap bars. Some people are not bothered by them at all. Others think they're the worst thing that Satan ever delivered to Earth, straight up from hell. And if you're like me, you aren't all that impressed with the layout either. But the lap bars are the difference between this being a top 10 ride for some, and a bottom 10 ride for others. The very definition of polarizing. Mock rides used to be all about their Wild Mouse coasters. Then they started going extreme and people seem to love them. Some people think Blue Fire and its clones are boring. Others are not impressed with Copperhead Strike. But for this one, I'm going with a coaster that I rode for the first time this past summer, Slinky Dog Dash. It's a Disney coaster, it's made for kids, but some people think it pulls some good forces, and they rank it near the top of their Disney list. For me, I thought it was entirely forceless, even for a family coaster, and the only coaster at Disney World that I have ranked below it is Barnstormer. Maurer is generally uncontroversial, but there is one that is a slam dunk for this list, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. When I came out raving about this coaster, I got a lot of people that were thankful that someone said something nice about this thing. The positive and negative forces were so extreme on my ride in 2021, I put this all the way in my top 20. For most others, this is the red-headed stepchild of Universal. The rattle and all the mid-course breaks killed this ride. At least that's what they say, and I get it. The rattle didn't bother me, but I felt it, and the mid-course brake runs barely did anything on my ride, so it just seems like I got the most optimal ride experience. Not the case for everyone else. Morgan only built a few coasters, but the ones they did build are huge. This was an easy pick for me, Steel Force. It seems like other Morgan hypers, Mamba and Wild Thing, those are disappointing for most enthusiasts. but it seems like Steel Force at Dorney Park gets a better reputation. Those airtime hills actually delivering actual airtime. I'm in the camp of, what airtime? I didn't think this was any better than Mamba or Wild Thing, but it could have just been the time of day I rode, or the weather, the half-full trains, who knows. It just seems like this one draws a lot of different opinions. Premier Rides makes a lot of smooth, short launch coasters, and everyone seems to enjoy them. Don't love them, don't hate them. But there is one that comes to mind, Flight of Fear at Kings Island and Kings Dominion. It's an indoor launch spaghetti bowl coaster, and some people really like not being able to see where they're going, plus the intensity in all the inversions. Others don't care for the ride experience, and the way the train moves through the inversions and transitions. I'm more in line with that group. I much prefer the outdoor version where you can see all the head choppers. Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, or PTC, is the granddaddy of all wooden coasters. Most of the ones that are still around have held up pretty well. I've heard positive and negative things about Screaming Eagle, Swamp Fox, and then there's Phoenix. It seems like most people at least like it, but then you have the people who say it's the best wooden coaster in the country. For PTC, I'm going back to Kings Island for a racer. It seems like everyone has a different story about it, and maybe that depends the last time you rode it. Wooden coasters get better or worse year to year depending on maintenance. Some people hate Racer for being rough. Others love it not only for being a classic, but also giving a good ride and being well taken care of by the park. I am definitely in that group. I think it's running great, and it's something you should ride every time you go. Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC, seems to only build coasters that enthusiasts love, and the GP lineup in droves to ride them, so there's a nice cross appeal. Twisted Cyclone gets a lot of love and hate between people who love the Forces, and people who hate how short it is. This all comes down to quality versus quantity. For RMC, I'm going with Jersey Devil Coaster. When this came out, the Raptor prototypes had already been around for 3 years. Those who had the chance to ride them got familiar with their intensity and whip and ejector airtime. So, when Jersey Devil opened in 2021, it's safe to say we expected a similar ride experience. This was a lot different. The ride seems temperamental based on the weather and the time of day, and where you sit in that 12-car train matters a lot. You will see all kinds of opinions on this, based on that specific ride the person got. I got a bad one, so I'm not a big fan, but others got to ride in ideal conditions and absolutely love it. Ejector airtime, whip, speed, everything that I seem to miss out on. The Roller Coaster Corporation of America, or RCCA, is known for their bad coasters. Not a lot of RCCA fans out there, but they were the company behind Son of Beast, and that ride actually had its share of fans. People actually miss this hyper wooden looper, even despite the pain. They were able to look past that and enjoy the speed and intensity. I agree, it was fast and intense, but it was way too rough for me. Also, it didn't have any airtime. S&S Sensei started making coasters in 2001. They specialize in launch coasters, but they also make wooden coasters, and of course, free spins. I don't think anyone really loves these, maybe a lukewarm like at best. And then you have those who despise them. For S&S, I'm going with Steel Curtain. A hypercoaster with 9 inversions sounds awesome on paper, and for some people it is. They actually rank this above Phantom's Revenge. After all, it has very diverse elements and it's a long ride. For others, this felt kind of flat. I thought the elements were forceless and it had a dull rattle the whole time. Kind of weird for a ride that was only 2 years old at the time. Schwarzkopf was big in the 70s and 80s. They never seemed to make a bad ride. For my money, they never made a great one either. That being said, they're always fun for a ride and they're mostly made to be portable. But the one I picked for this list was made for its terrain. Revolution at Magic Mountain. There's no doubt this ride is a classic and it's interesting, dropping and weaving around the mountain. But it also could not be more forceless, something you normally can't say about Schwarzkopf coasters. Some appreciate it for its layout, others pass on it for its thrill factor. Whatever you make of it, it's a good beginner's looping coaster. Vekoma has been killing it as of late, making state-of-the-art rides, so their polarizing ones are ones that date back to the 90s. Blue Hawk was just overhauled a few years ago, and it made the ride less painful, but some people still seem to hate it. Invertigo is a boomerang, just with the train under the track, and I think the inverted factor makes it more intense and more fun. Others don't agree. For Vekoma, I'm going with Rock and Roller Coaster. I think nostalgia plays a role here. This was a lot of people's first looping coaster, so they look back fondly on it. It's also the only looping coaster at Disney World, so it looks better just because of its surroundings. I was on the side of it not being anything special. Sophie thought it was painful. I don't know of anyone who hates the ride, but there seems to be a big gap of opinions here. Zamperla makes mostly small coasters, but once in a while they branch out and build a ride like Rollin' Thunder. The original is Thunderbolt at Coney Island. Most people seem to agree that ride has problems, but those who rode Rollin' Thunder at Tropic Falls said this one was much better. I believed them and took Sophie on it, and I wish I hadn't. The best way to describe it is an old shopping cart going over a pile of rocks. So you have the people who think this is the good one, and you have the others that had the same experience that I had. I think where you sit on the train matters a lot. Last one, Zir. They also make mostly small rides, but they have some great ones. And I think the most polarizing coaster is an easy call, Wicked at Lagoon. One reason for this is the lap bar. Before I rode it in 2017, I heard the lap bar ruins the ride. I didn't have that experience. I absolutely love the top hat and the zero-G roll. People also criticize it for its layout, and I admit after the first half it's kinda pointless. But those who can appreciate those elite elements don't come off disappointed. This will range from number 2 at the park all the way down to 6 or 7. That's all for every manufacturer's most polarizing coaster. I know this was very American-centric, so if you have a non-American coaster that seems polarizing, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think of my picks, and if you would have gone with something else for any of these manufacturers. Before you go, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub for more content just like this. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you love baseball like me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.